Just outside the cafe is a work of art in progress commissioned by the De Young and created by California artist James Terrell. It's an amazing piece to discover while you're in the sculpture garden. Just one example of the world-class artists who have contributed their talents to the new De Young. Most people may not look at a crack in the pavement as art, but for renowned English artist Andy Goldsworthy, it speaks volumes.
They do function as windows, openings to materials. I'm continuously trying to look beyond the surface of things. So this idea of a crack in the stone was beautiful. Or then it opened up the possibility of, instead of actually making a sculpture that would sit on the surface here, would actually be in the surface.
The result is a commissioned piece called Drawn Stone. When you first step from the road to the main entrance courtyard, you'll see a meandering crack, and the idea is to follow it.
Initially, you're going to think it's a mistake in the stonemason's work, but then you realize it's intentional. So hopefully that will make you say, well, I wonder why someone would ever want to make a crack. That seems like a stupid thing to do. And then you see it running through big boulders and meandering in the front door, and then you think, oh my gosh, that's a reference to the earthquake, and this place had to be rebuilt because of an earthquake.
Obviously in San Francisco, the crack takes on a significance that it wouldn't in other places. And that, yes, that is a connection that I liked. It also brings to the sculpture it strengthens those ideas of movement. It's so brave of the museum here to commission a work such as this as an entrance piece. You know, normally there is a sculpture announcing, museum.
Andy Goldsworthy is famous for his work with natural materials such as rock, leaves, wood, and snow. Because of this, some of his work is transient, but his permanent work has been seen in more than 200 solo and group exhibitions, as well as an installation for the Metropolitan Museum of Art. The challenge of this piece was learning how to work with the stone.
We experimented with ways of cutting a groove at the back of the stone and breaking it that way, but we got this very boring straight line. And eventually learned that by hitting it with a hammer on the back, produced a wonderful kind of seismic sort of edge, which is what I was after.
Another commissioned piece is the Gerhard Richter mural, which hangs prominently in the main public gathering space for the museum.
But Gerhard Richter used highly magnified photographs of the interior and atomic structure of the element strontium. So these are hugely magnified images, which he then massaged on a computer and tweaked and turned into this pattern that looks like a string of pearls. But I think it's a very engaging, very high-tech, innovative and new way to be looking at the world.
Through all of these world-class pieces, visitors will get the unique chance to see how these internationally acclaimed artists use their art to tell stories of the world around us.
The art became this way of understanding what's around me, of revealing what's there. It feeds me, it really does, and that's, I think, what has sustained me for the last 30 years.
These palm trees are the same ones that were in the park 100 years ago. That's just one example of the tremendous care that's gone into designing the diverse landscape, as well as the hope to blend some of the old with the new. The vision comes from Bay Area landscape architect Walter Hood.
If you look down where we are now, you see sand. And we started there and we looked at some photographs of sand particles. And we noticed that when you look at them in the microscope, they're not brown. They're white, they're black, they're green, they're yellow. And if you think where we are on the Pacific Rim, this is all of this geology washing ashore. And so we really thought about the ground then as this mosaic of different types of geological finds. So the ground will become this kaleidoscope, which in a way is a metaphor for the sand. Now, the fantastic thing about the De Young Museum, it really has 4 sides, and 4 sides that are completely different. The front side, being on the concourse, is a more calmer, more classical side where we've stored the historic palms and we're bringing them back, a tapis vert ground, very simple paving. Then you come to the west side where we are now, and there's a sculpture garden. And we started this sculpture garden and we didn't have any pieces, right? And so we had to imagine. Then you go to the back on JFK, and we've just tried to make the park experience better. I can't think of one museum where the back is beautiful, with the exception of De Young.
The museum's unique layout and ribbon of windows allowed for the landscape to come indoors, integrating the park and the museum even more.